Hello, beautiful people. We are now doing 7.2 word problems, and the two formulas that we're going to be using are for interest, compound interest and compounded continuously interest. The first one is A equals P times the quantity 1 plus R over N, all raised to the power of NT, where A is my account balance after T years, so this is how much money we're going to end up with. P is my initial principal, so it could be like how much money you're going to put into your savings account. N is the number of compounds per year, and R is your interest rate. So number of compounds means like how many times you're going to see or calculate how much interest to add to the amount of money that you put in there. Then there's compounded continuously, which sounds amazing because it's just going to like compound over and over and over again. And for that, we will use the formula A equals P times E to the RT. P is still the same principal amount, and R is your rate. This time there's no N because it's going to be compounded continuously, and that's accounted for with the base E that we see here. Okay, couple reminders, of course. Don't forget to write your rate in decimal form. It'll mess up your whole answer otherwise. Before we get into today's lecture, I do want you to go ahead, if you have not already done so, and try the warm-up that you see here. Take a moment, read the problem, and then you can check your answer with mine. Alakazam. So T was 3 years, and then I plugged it directly into this formula here. And then I think the main reason why I want to make sure that you're okay with this is just to make sure that you're able to get this same answer using your calculator. So if you get a different number, it's probably just because you entered in something wrong or something. So if you're having issues with your calculator, I'd love for you to kind of just check in with your teacher or with a classmate to make sure that you're using the correct keys. Remember one important note, which I think will be helpful for today, for this E, you're going to do second LN. It's the button that's like right next to the number 4 on your calculator, and then that'll pop up the E to the X button, and then you can put these two numbers, you can put them both in actually for the parentheses, in parentheses, for multiplying each other. So that'll save you a little bit of time moving forward, and I think it'll also make it harder to make a couple of mistakes. Alright, let's go to today's lesson if you don't mind. Here we are. You deposit $600 into an account earning 6.2% annual interest. Sounds delightful. Find the account balance after 5 years if compounded. For part A, we're going to talk about annually, B, semi-annually, C, quarterly, and D, continuously. Main reason here that I'm going over these problems is just to make sure that we're clear about what we mean by each of these 4 terms. So annually means it's going to be compounded once a year. So if it's compounded once a year, that means that the N is equal to 1. Semi-annually, it could typically actually mean 2 things. It could mean every other year, but in this case and for these problems, I would like for you to consider it as N equals 2, like twice a year for us. We're using the interpretation of semi-annually, meaning twice a year. Quarterly, you think of a quarter, that means every quarter, every 4 months, it's going to be compounded. Quarter, 4 quarters in a year. And then compounded continuously is going to be PERT. That's what I want you to think about, is PERT. So this is where A is equal to P times E to the RT. For these, everything else, unless you see the trigger word here is continuously. Trigger word sounds negative. The key word here is continuously. If you don't see the word continuously for compounded, then I want you to automatically go to the other formula, which is P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. You'll see me trying to just write it down as much as I can because that's going to help me remember the formula and what goes where in it. So for letter A, annually, the amount that I'm going to get is the principal, which was $600, times 1 plus R. What's my rate? 6.2. No, I'm going to write it as a decimal, so I'm going to move it over twice. 0.062 over N. How many times? Well, for annually, it's just 1. And then 1 is my N, T for my exponents. What was my T? 5 years, it said. So times 5. And then I'm going to punch some numbers into my calculator, as you can and you should if you'd like to. And I'm going to find that this is $810.54. And again, if you struggle with using your calculator at this point, then I would like for you to go ahead and just check in with your teacher so she can give you a quick tutorial. Or he. Semi-annually. So you're going to do the same thing, except now you're going to have 600 times 1 plus 0.062 over what this time? Well, n, so that's going to be 2. And then this will be 2 times 5. A little bit of a concern, so I just want to make sure that you're okay with the calculator part if you don't mind. Yeah, I know, my body's going to die soon. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. I'm entering 600, and then I'm using parentheses, 1 plus, and then I'm going to put it in parentheses, 0.062 divided by 2, parentheses, because that was for the fraction, and this is for that whole 1 plus part. And I'm going to raise that to the power of, parentheses, 2 times 5. Now, depending on which calculator you have, yours actually might go into an exponent, so you might see this looking a little bit smaller. Same steps, though, despite the different displays. And then from there, I get 814.2127, blah, blah, blah. No one really cares. We're talking about money, so I'm always going to round to the nearest hundredth. So $814.21. I did want to make sure that I just showed you that, just in case you were like, well, could you just show us to make sure? Okay, and then the same thing, it gets kind of redundant after a while, but this one, A is equal to, I like the letter A apparently, A is equal to 601 plus 0.062 over 4, and then NT is 4 times 5. And then you enter that into your calculator. Again, if you have not tried this on your own, I do highly recommend that you do it just to make sure that you're okay with it, because you wouldn't want to find out on a test, oh, I don't really know how to do this, and I keep getting a really bad answer that makes no sense. These numbers all kind of make sense to me. That's after 5 years. We started with $600. Things you don't want to see is a number that's less than 600, because they're compounding it, so they should be adding money to what you put in there. And if you look at it, the number of times that we're compounding, we went from 1, so we had 810 bucks, 814 bucks, extra $4 for compounded semi-annually, and then extra $6 and some change for compounded quarterly. So you would expect that for continuously, it should go up. Probably not by a lot, but it should still go up a little bit. So A is equal to P, 600, times E to the power of R, 0.062, that was my rate, times T, which is still 5 years. And then you can enter this one into your calculator as well. Just a quick demo to make sure you're okay. 600, and then it was second, so second. And then LN is right next to the number 4. I know this doesn't like my contrast, but hit LN, and then you should get this. And I'm going to put it in parentheses, 0.062 times 5, close parentheses. And there you go, 818 bucks and 6 cents, because it was 5.5. I rounded up for that one. Cool. All right, you like it? I love it. Here's what I would love to do. You, looking at this next problem here, you deposit $725. So we came up from $600 to $725 into an account that pays 4.5 annual interest compounded continually. What would the balance be after 3 years? I would like for you to find that. And then I would like for you to do the second portion of this. Actually, let's just go ahead and do it together. Compounded continuously, that's a key word for me instead of a trigger word, which means I'm going to be using PERT. It used to be a shampoo called PERT. I don't know if it's still a thing or not. So my account balance is going to be principal, that's the P, $725 times E to the RT. So what was the rate that we had? Moving it over twice, 0.045. You'll find that when you're putting money in a bank for savings, the interest rate's going to be low, like 4.5, 6, and so on and so on. But when you borrow money from the bank, however, it tends to be quite higher for that. Interesting. So you're going to enter this in your calculator, and then we're going to do a little Alakazam, and we should get $829.79. So we put in a little bit more. We did have it for less time than we had for the previous problem, and we got some more money back, which was kind of nice. We had it in for less time, but we put in more money to start with, so that was nice. Bigger yield on that one. Okay, next part, beautiful people. This is a good problem. I like it. I want you to try it on your own, actually, though. So I'm going to go ahead and really just request that you please press pause and try this one on your own if you have not tried to look ahead already, or at least watch me in ×2. Thanks. All right. So for compounded quarterly, n was equal to 4, and I got $1,972.34. And for compounded continuously, I used PERT, and I got $1,978.47. So the question is, which type of compounded which type of compounding yielded the greatest balance? And that answer for that one would be, as we would expect, continuously. All right, so for this next portion of it, it does get a little bit redundant, but I did want to just make sure that you saw the differences in the numbers. This is probably a good one if you just want to work on your calculator work, or just like, not sure, let me just practice this a little bit later on. You can do this next slide, but I don't want to kind of waste your time because it is kind of like beating a dead horse. I would just emphasize that for these formulas, you're going to use the top one, which was A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. And then for this one, because it says continuously there on the bottom, you will use the PERT. I don't know if you guys have still even heard of that or not. But if you do end up doing it, I do want to just also give you what the answers would be for that. Also remind you for this one, the P is 1,000 when you're checking yourself, and that the T, it's after 1 year, would be 1, and that your rate would be 0.025. Just in case, like if you do get a different number than what you're supposed to get, then you can see what that is. I'm also going to show you that the answers to those, because if you want to check yourself, should be these numbers. You can press pause on that and check it out later if you need to. Thank you so much for joining me. We've covered some wonderful formulas, some wonderful application problems. I hope that you have a great day. Bye-bye.